In last lecture, I discussed about Python loops. So in this lecture, I would like to explain about Python decision making. So here in Python decision making, we have three statements. Those are if else, and elif or nested if. So these are the three statements that we have in Python decision making statements. In every programming language, we have decision making statements. So in Python we have these three decision making statements. So here in this lecture we have to learn what is decision making statement and its types, if statements, if else statements and nested if statements. These are the topics that we have to learn in this lecture. So here first of all, decision making statement and its types. Before going to discuss about the types of decision making statements, first of all we have to know about what is decision making statement. Here decision making statement, sometimes we are using while we are writing a program, we have to use sometimes conditions. So in that conditions we have to suppose if the condition is true, then we have to print one statement. Otherwise if the condition is false, we have to print another statement. So while executing the conditions, we require decision making statements. It taking decision. So that's why decision making statements we have to use in our programming. In every programming language we are using decision making statements. So here see, this is the flowchart, and the another important points in decision making statement is, while we are using decision making statements, it takes true as for any non-zero values and for any non-null values. Here the programming language assumes that the programming language assumes that for any non-zero and non-null values, it assumes as a true value, and if it is either 0 or null value, it is assumed as false value. So here this is the two important points that we have to keep in decision making statements while we are writing the program. And see the flowchart of the decision making statements, we have to understand betterly. Now the first of all, it checks the condition. If the condition is true, it executes the conditional code. That is, we have that the conditional code is nothing but that we have to write inside the if statement. Inside the if statement or if else statement or elif or nested if, we have to write the conditional code inside the if statement. If the condition is true, it executes the condition code. That otherwise it executes, if the condition becomes false, it executes the outside the if statement or outside the else statement. So here this is about decision making statement, and now we'll see the types of decision making statement. And here in the types of decision making statements, first of all, the first one is if statement. So it is also similar to that of other languages that we have to use in C programming and Java programming. And the if statement contains a logical expression. So if here while using if statement, we are using logical expressions. So by using logical expressions, we are saying that in that we are taking decision. So and here the decision, how it can take decision, the data is compared to a decision, and the result is the based upon the comparison. So here this is the syntax of if statement, and now here we will see the if statement syntax. If expression colon and the statements we have to write inside the if statement. See, always you maintain indentation. Because why? Because we are not using curly braces compared to other languages. Here in Python programming languages, we are not using curly braces. So we always maintain indentation instead of writing curly braces. After writing if you want to write these statements inside the if statement, then we always maintain this indentation. So here that means that it is in the inside the if statement. And if the suppose here see the flowchart of if statement. Here this is the condition that we are writing with the help of if, and if the condition is true, then it executes the conditional code that we wrote in the inside the if statement. Otherwise, if the condition becomes false, then it goes to the outside the if statement. Sometimes they have also wrote these statements outside the if statement. So outside the if the condition becomes false, then it executes the statements that we wrote in the outside the if statement. So this is, I hope that everyone understand that what is if statement and how we can use it. Now we will see an example, then you have to understand better. And this is an example for if statement. First of all, we are assigning variable 1 is equal to 100. Here variable 1 is a variable name and 100 is a value that is stored in variable 1. Then here if variable 1 colon print 1 got a true expression value, print of variable 1. So here we are checking the condition. I already told you that for any non-zero values, the condition, the programming languages assume as true value. So here we are taking variable 1 is equal to 100. If 100, so 100 is a non-zero value. 100 is a non-zero value. So 100 is a non-zero value. So the condition becomes true. Then what it will print? It will print 1 got a true expression value. So in output we get 1 got a true expression value. And later print of variable 1. We also wrote that another statement in the inside the if statement, that print of variable 1. What will print? It will print the value stored in variable 1. So the value stored in variable 1 is 100. It will print 100. And later variable 2 is equal to 0. And see, this is also an example. Variable 2 is equal to 0. I already said that for any 0 or null values, the condition the language assumed as a false value. So here variable 2 is equal to 0 is a 0 value. And if var2 colon, here var2, the value in var2 is 0. So the condition is false. So it assumed as the condition is false. So it doesn't print the 2 got a 2 expression value variable 2. These statements doesn't print. Why? Because the condition is false. So it executes the statement that we wrote outside the if statement. So see, this is not in the inside the if. This is the outside the if. So see, indentation. We are writing outside the if. Print goodbye. So it will print the goodbye. So this is the example for if statement, and this is the output for that example. And now we'll see another one, if else statements. So here we also, the second type is if else statements, and in every programming language also we have if statements. An if statement can be combined with an if statement. Why we are writing if else statements? If we are writing if else statement, if the condition is true, it will print the if statement. Otherwise, else we have to write that if the condition is false, it will execute the else statement. So here it expression, if the condition expression in the if statement resolves to 0 or a false value, then it is an optional. So you see, it is an option, it is not mandatory. So the syntax of the if else statement is that, and for every if value we have to use only one else statement only. We don't want to, we don't use other 2 or 3 else statements. We only use one for one if statement. We have to use only one else statement. So here the syntax for if else statement is, the syntax of the if else statement is if expression colon statement of s. So this is the statement that is related to f. So this is the statement that we related to s, and else statement of s. This is these statements related to else, and these statements related to if. If the condition is true, it executes the statements that we wrote in inside the if statement. Otherwise, it will print the statements that will wrote in else statement. So here see the flowchart diagram. Here in flowchart, if the condition is true, it executes the if code. Otherwise, if the condition is false, it executes the else code. So this is a clearly we have to observe that if the condition is true, it executes the if code. Otherwise, it executes the else code. So this is about if else statement, and we'll see one example. And this is the example for if else statement. Here first of all, initially we are assigning variable 1 is equal to 100. 100 is the value which is stored in variable 1. And if variable 1 colon, if variable 1 colon means what? If 100 is a non-zero value, so the it condition becomes true. This condition becomes true, so it executes these two statements that we wrote inside the if statement. So we got output as 1 got a 2 expression value and 100, and later else print 1 got a false expression value, print of variable 1. Why these two statements doesn't print that? Here the condition is true, so that's why it executes the if code. If the condition becomes false, then it executes the else code. Here in this condition, the condition becomes true, so that's why it executes the if code. It doesn't execute the else code, so this is optional. And see another example here. Variable 2 is equal to 0. Variable 2 is equal to 0 if variable 2 colon. Here variable 2 colon means we have 0 value in variable 2, so the condition is false. If the condition will false, then we see what will happen. So it doesn't execute the if codes. It doesn't execute the if codes. Why? Because here the condition becomes false. So I already said that if the condition becomes false, it executes the else code, else statements. So here the else statements are 2 got a false expression value, print of variable 2. So it will print the else code, else statements. 2 got a false expression value 0, and later it will print the print value that we wrote outside the else statement. So here outside the else statement we wrote that print goodbye, so it will print the goodbye. So this is the output that we get for this example, and I hope that everyone understand that what is if else and example for if else. And we have elif statement. So here elif statement allows you to check multiple expressions for true and execute a block of code. So sometimes we have to execute multiple expressions for true or false and execute a block of code as soon as one of the conditions evaluates to true. So similar to the else, the elif statement is also an optional. That is not a mandatory with if statement. It is an optional. If you want to use that, you can use. However, so okay, now we'll see the syntax of elif statement. And here, if expression 1 colon statement of s, and elif expression of 2 statement of s, elif expression of 3 statement of s, and else statement of s. So here what we wrote that here if expression 1, it will, if the expression 1 is true, then it executes the statements that we wrote in inside the if. Otherwise it checks the second condition. This is the first condition, this is the second condition, third condition, and later if all conditions are becomes false, then it will execute the else statement. So now we will see one example with a clear explanation. First of all, we are initializing variable is equal to 100. Here the 100 value which is stored in variable. If variable double is equal to 200, here double is equal to this operator. Why we are using this operator means for comparison. For comparison purpose we are using this double is equal to. If variable double is equal to 200 colon, print 1 got a true expression value and print where. Here initially we have variable is equal to 100. If 100 double is equal to 200, is it true value or false value? Of course it is false value. It is false. Later it will check the elif condition. Variable double is equal to 150. Here 100 double is equal to 150. It is a true value? No, it is a false value. So later it will checks the condition, third condition, elif variable double is equal to 100. Where is 100 double is equal to 100? Yes, it is a true value. So here it will execute the print 3 got a true expression value, print of where. So here the condition is the third expression is true, so that's why it executes the third expression statement. The third expression statement, what is the third expression statement? 3 got a true expression value and print where. Variable, in variable we have 100 value, so it will print the 100 value. Later it execute if this condition again, if the condition this also, if we have variable is equal to 101, so if 101 is equal to double is equal to 100, it is in that case it will false. So if these three expressions are false, then it will execute the else statement. So in this coming to our topic here, 100 is true, so that's why it executes the third expression, third statement, and later it doesn't need else statement doesn't need in this condition. While because here the condition is true, so that's why it doesn't execute the else statement. It directly goes to the here. It will print goodbye. So this is the output that we get for this example here. And the last one that we have in decision making statement is nested if statement. So here nested if is nothing but a if inside if another if. There may be a situation when you want to check for another condition after a condition resolves to true. So in that conditions, in that situations, we are using nested if statements. So if else construct inside another if. So now we have to see that example syntax. First of all, the syntax for nested if is if expression 1 colon statement of else, if expression 2 colon statement of else, elif expression 3 colon statement of else, elif expression 4 of colon statement of else statement of else statement of else. So see here, this is one if statement, and this is the statements that we wrote that in if statement, and these statements are in if inside if. So see indentation, here we are maintaining indentation, we are writing if statement inside the if. So if expression 2, then if these all expression becomes false, then it executes the last else statement. So here see one example here. Example, variable is equal to 100. Initially variable is equal to 100. Later it checks the condition variable less than 200. Is variable less than 200? That is that true? 100 is less than 200, so it is true. So it goes to the inside the if statement, and it executes the print expression value is less than 200. So these are the statements that we wrote inside the if statement. Here if condition is true, so that why it goes to the inside the if. So it will now executes the statements, that code we write inside the if statement. So it first of all it will print the expression value is less than 200, and if later it checks the condition if variable double is equal to 150 colon. If variable double is equal to 150 colon, is it true? Here variable we have 100 double is equal to 150, no, it is false. So it doesn't print this statement. Later it checks the elif condition. If elif variable double is equal to 100, yeah, it's true, 100 double is equal to 100, so it will print the print which is 100. So it will print the which is 100. And if elif variable double is equal to 50, so we don't need to compare these statements. Why? Because we already execute the condition which is 100, and these are the false conditions. And here else print couldn't find true expression value. If we didn't find any expression value as a true, then we print that expression value is less than 50. So this else statement is for this if statements inside if statement, and this else statement is for outside the if, main if. This is inside if, this is the main if. So here this if for this else, and this if for this else. So this is about the example, and after completion of this execution, the final one is print goodbye. So it will print the goodbye. So this is about nested if statement and its example. I hope that everyone understood that decision making statements in Python and the types of the decision making statements that we have in Python. First of all, we discussed about if statement, and later we discussed about if else and elif statements and with examples, and finally we discussed about nested if statement and with example. And if you like this video, you can subscribe my channel to get more videos on Python language.